On the evening of January 24th, 2023, a phone call to 911 captured what may be the worst moment of a man's life happening in real time. Patrick Clancy had just returned home to Summer Street in Duxbury, Massachusetts, after running an errand for his wife. According to what Patrick told police, the first thing he noticed was the silence. He went upstairs and found the bedroom door locked. Once inside, he found blood near a mirror by an open window, then saw his wife, Lindsay, in the backyard below, conscious but severely injured. On the recording, he can be heard asking her what she had done. According to prosecutors, she replied, "I tried to kill myself." He asked where the children were. According to prosecutors, she answered, "In the basement." Patrick ran downstairs where, according to court proceedings, he can be heard on the recording in evident agony as he discovered that his 3 children, Cora, age 5, Dawson, age 3, and Callan, 8 months old, had been strangled with resistance exercise bands. That call is the starting point for one of the most closely watched and difficult criminal trials in recent Massachusetts history. Nearly 3 years later, Lindsay Clancy is standing trial in Plymouth Superior Court, charged with 3 counts each of murder, strangulation, and assault, and battery with a dangerous weapon. She has pleaded not guilty to all charges. What is not in dispute, and what her own defense has never denied, is that she caused the deaths of her 3 children that night. What is in dispute is whether she should be held criminally responsible for it, or whether a severe mental health collapse in the months following her 3rd child's birth means the law should treat her differently. Before any of this, Lindsay Clancy's life looked stable by most outside accounts. She worked as a labor and delivery nurse, a career spent helping other women through childbirth. She married Patrick Clancy, and the couple had 3 children, Cora, Dawson, and Callan, who was born in the summer of 2022. It was in the months after Callan's birth that, according to both defense filings and testimony from Lindsay's own family, her mental health began to deteriorate sharply. Patrick Clancy, testifying over 2 days early in the trial, described how his wife's stress, anxiety, and other symptoms intensified after the birth. According to Reddington, Clancy's defense attorney, she was prescribed as many as 12 different psychiatric medications in a matter of months as she sought help, a pattern he has repeatedly characterized as horrific over-medication that he believes triggered a psychotic break. According to court filings, Clancy had also been hospitalized for psychiatric treatment before the killings and remained in contact with outpatient providers in the weeks leading up to January 24th. Diary entries she wrote in the months before the tragedy were read aloud by prosecutors during the trial. In one entry, she wrote that she felt so desperate to get a mental break from taking care of everyone that it was as though her mind was trying to make something physically wrong with her. Her mother, Paula Musgrove, testified that Lindsay told her the medication felt like it was destroying her mind, and said, "This isn't me. I've never been like this before," a statement her mother testified she agreed with, because in her words, she wasn't. The prosecution has never disputed that Clancy was struggling with her mental health during this period. Where the 2 sides diverge is over what her mental state was on the specific day of the killings, and whether what happened resulted from a disabling psychotic episode or a decision made with awareness and intent. According to prosecutors, on the morning of January 24th, Clancy asked her husband to run an errand, picking up their children's medication from a CVS pharmacy and takeout food from a restaurant in North Plymouth. Prosecutors allege she had researched how long the trip would take, using a mapping application to calculate how much time she would have alone with the children, a claim central to the state's premeditation argument. Patrick was gone for roughly 25 minutes. According to the state's account, presented by Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague at Clancy's arraignment, Lindsay strangled each of her 3 children with resistance exercise bands during that window, then attempted to take her own life by cutting her wrists and neck. Injuries prosecutors described as not life-threatening, before climbing out of a second-story bedroom window. Prosecutors said a bloody knife was later found on the nightstand near the window. According to Reddington, Clancy held onto the ledge before losing her grip and falling, an account prosecutors have not directly disputed. The fall broke her spine and left her paralyzed, using a wheelchair, a fact both sides agree on. At arraignment, Sprague suggested Clancy had not truly intended to die in the fall, telling the court she lowered herself out of the window and dropped down. I don't think she took into account the fact that the ground was frozen, a characterization the defense has not accepted. Sprague told the court Clancy planned the murders, gave herself the time and privacy to commit them, and strangled each child in the place where they should have felt safest, at home with their mother. That is the prosecution's characterization, not a court finding, and remains the central claim the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense has consistently rejected the state's framing. From Clancy's earliest court appearances, Reddington has argued that society fails miserably in treating women with postpartum depression or psychosis, calling the case, in his assessment, a clear product of mental illness rather than calculation. He has maintained throughout the trial that Clancy should not be held criminally responsible because she was, in his characterization, in the grip of severe postpartum psychosis brought on or worsened by her medications. According to the defense, Patrick was never instructed by any provider not to leave Lindsay alone with the children, a detail Reddington has pointed to as evidence that no one treating her recognized how dangerous her condition had become. Some of the more consequential testimony came from Clancy's own treatment providers. Her outpatient psychiatrist testified she had never actually met Clancy in person, treating her only remotely, and maintained under questioning that Clancy never expressed suicidal ideation or symptoms of psychosis during their sessions. A therapist who saw Clancy at a perinatal mental health clinic in late 2022 testified similarly, saying she observed no signs of psychosis or mania in her patient. If accepted by the jury, this testimony would tend to support the prosecution's position. The defense has argued in response that this reflects the very failure at the heart of its case, that Clancy's symptoms were missed or underestimated by the professionals responsible for catching them, not that the symptoms weren't there. Forensic evidence has also played a significant role. A forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy on Cora testified to neck trauma consistent with strangulation, along with additional injuries to the child's arm and legs. During this testimony, Clancy, seated at the defense table, began sobbing uncontrollably, one of several moments where her visible emotional reactions have drawn attention from courtroom observers, debating what weight, if any, jurors might give to a defendant's distress when she does not dispute causing the deaths being described. One contested thread involved statements Clancy made in the hospital days after the killings, describing having heard a voice. In a medical malpractice lawsuit she has since filed against two of her treatment providers, Clancy alleges that on January 24th, she heard a voice telling her, "This is your last chance. Kill the children so you can kill yourself." That allegation comes from her own civil lawsuit, not a finding by any court. Both Clancy and Patrick have filed malpractice suits against providers they accuse of failing to diagnose her bipolar disorder and prescribing what they describe as a revolving door of medications that triggered a psychotic break. State police investigators, according to trial testimony, explored the possibility that Clancy had been coached by a psychologist to claim she heard voices, laying groundwork for an insanity defense before she ever spoke to law enforcement. An investigator testified this theory was considered internally, but that no evidence was found to support it, and that the investigator posted outside her hospital room never actually overheard her conversation with the psychologist or her later phone call to her husband. The coaching theory was examined and not substantiated, which is different from being disproven, and the defense has pushed back hard on the implication itself. The case moved slowly through the Massachusetts court system for years before reaching trial. Clancy was formally arraigned on February 7, 2023, from a hospital bed, on 3 counts each of murder, strangulation, and assault, and battery with a dangerous weapon, and pleaded not guilty. The presiding judge ordered her held at a medical facility, citing a serious risk of imminent self-harm, a finding prosecutors did not object to. She was later ordered held without bail and committed to Tewksbury State Hospital, where she has remained for most of the case's pre-trial period, at times appearing by video conference due to the difficulty of transporting her. Her attorney has argued that transporting her daily for trial by medical van carries real health risks, at one point warning the court there was a real possibility she could take her own life if her medical needs went unmet under the strain of a lengthy trial. Pre-trial proceedings included extensive disputes over evidence, including a court-ordered DNA swab early in the case and a 2025 motion by prosecutors seeking a New Yorker reporter's notes from an interview with Patrick about Lindsay's mental health. Both sides spent months exchanging expert witness materials, since her mental state at the time of the killings sits at the center of the case. The trial itself was delayed multiple times before finally beginning in July 2026, with jury selection starting July 20th, more than 3.5 years after the deaths of Cora, Dawson, and Callan. Weeks into the trial, jurors were allowed to hear Patrick's original 911 call in full, over defense objections. Prosecutors argued the recording had significant evidentiary value in showing deliberate premeditation, extreme atrocity, or cruelty, and Lindsay's state of mind, and the court allowed the recording but instructed jurors on how they could legally consider it. Common practice when evidence is emotionally powerful, but legally narrow in what it can prove. By mid-August 2026, the prosecution rested its case after weeks of testimony aimed at establishing premeditation and undercutting the psychosis narrative. Reddington then began presenting the defense's case, calling witnesses who described Clancy as, in their accounts, a dedicated and loving parent before the killings. Testimony aimed at reinforcing the idea that what happened represented a sudden and catastrophic break, rather than who she actually was as a mother. Paula Musgrove testified for the defense, describing her daughter's fear that medication was, in Lindsay's own words as her mother recalled them, destroying her mind. The defense also pushed to expand its witness list mid-trial, including an attempt to add a TikTok creator to testify about conditions at the psychiatric hospital where Clancy had been treated, aimed at rebutting prosecution testimony about her care there. Clancy's sister, Allison Ozga, also took the stand for the defense this week, describing a visible decline in the weeks before the killings. Ozga testified that at Cora's birthday party, held roughly 2 weeks before her nieces and nephew died, Lindsay looked like she was going through the motions and said she noticed her sister's mental health appeared to be deteriorating, in particular around the start of December 2022. Ozga recalled telling the court, "I had this gut feeling that something was off and that she was really struggling," and said she directly asked Lindsay if she was safe, to which Lindsay said yes at the time. The defense is expected to call additional witnesses today, continuing to build its case that Clancy's decline was visible to the people closest to her in the weeks leading up to the killings, even as it argues the medical providers responsible for her treatment failed to catch it in time. Reddington has also directly challenged the strength of the prosecution's digital evidence, questioning whether phone and mapping data actually proves the calculated premeditation prosecutors allege, or amounts to circumstantial timing that could be explained other ways. As of the most recent proceedings, no verdict has been reached. The defense continues calling witnesses after the prosecution's case concluded, and the presiding judge has repeatedly reminded jurors that their verdict must rest solely on the evidence, not on sympathy, anger, passion, or prejudice. Under Massachusetts law, a not guilty by reason of insanity finding does not mean release. Clancy would typically be committed to a secure psychiatric facility, potentially for the remainder of her life, with any future release contingent on court and medical findings that she no longer poses a danger. If convicted of first-degree murder, she would face a mandatory life sentence. The stakes of this trial are not a binary between guilt and freedom. They are a decision about where and under what legal status Lindsay Clancy will spend the rest of her life. The aftermath of this case has already extended well beyond the courtroom. Both Lindsay and Patrick have filed separate medical malpractice lawsuits against providers who treated her for postpartum depression and anxiety following Callan's birth, alleging she was over-medicated and that her worsening symptoms went inadequately addressed. Those civil suits remain separate from the criminal trial, but reflect the same argument the defense has made criminally, that a fragmented course of psychiatric treatment played a direct role in what happened. Patrick issued a public statement weeks after Lindsay's arraignment, saying he had forgiven her, describing their marriage as wonderful and stating it grew stronger even as her condition rapidly worsened in ways he says were largely invisible to people who never knew the real Lindsay. That statement has remained a point of reference throughout the years of coverage that followed. For advocates focused on maternal mental health, the Clancy case has become one of the most visible examples in recent memory of how postpartum psychosis, a condition still not widely understood by the public, can escalate to catastrophic outcomes even when a mother is actively seeking help through the formal healthcare system. Clancy was, by nearly every account given at trial, someone in contact with psychiatric providers, someone hospitalized for treatment, someone whose own family recognized that something in her had changed, that she still reached the point she reached on January 24, 2023, has become, for some advocates, evidence that maternal mental health screening and crisis intervention need far more resources and urgency than they currently receive. For others, particularly those centered on the victims, the case raises a different question. How much weight a defendant's own documented suffering should carry against the deaths of 3 children who had no voice in any of it? Cora, Dawson, and Callan will not grow up, will not have the lives their parents once planned for them, regardless of what a jury ultimately decides about their mother's state of mind. Patrick has had to testify in detail about his wife's decline, has had to listen to pathologists describe his children's injuries in a public courtroom, and has had to rebuild a life that was shattered in the span of 25 minutes on an ordinary Tuesday, while he was out picking up dinner and medication for a family that would no longer exist by the time he got home. Whatever verdict the jury in Plymouth County eventually returns, the case of Lindsay Clancy has already become a lasting reference point, both in discussions of maternal mental health policy and within the broader landscape of American criminal trials involving parents accused of killing their own children, a category that tends to divide public opinion more sharply than almost any other. Some will see Lindsay Clancy as a woman catastrophically failed by a mental health system that had every opportunity to intervene before tragedy struck. Others will see a woman whose documented struggles, however severe, do not change the fact that 3 children are dead and that she was the one who killed them. Both positions can be held sincerely by people who followed the exact same testimony, which is a large part of why this case has held public attention for nearly 3 years, and why the trial currently unfolding in Plymouth Superior Court will likely be remembered as one of the more consequential and painful cases Massachusetts has seen in a generation, regardless of which way the jury ultimately decides to be continued.